what? Honestly, like, whatever. Like, I'm not gonna tell somebody what to do.
Well,
I
you
just
kind of
do
are
think
right
that
now.
well, if telling okay, if by saying be creative, I'm telling someone what to do. I think you should probably do that. That's
Right. What is up, everyone? Thanks for tuning in. This is another episode of the Scoped Exposure podcast. This episode is all Alberta, and one that I think Rob and I have been talking about setting up for a long ass time. I'm going to be talking with Rob and Ryan of an amazing band that I've, had the pleasure of, working alongside for certain releases, as well as documenting a number of their sets. And there's been so many questions and things that I've wanted to break down the lore of this band, and I'm really excited to finally be sitting down and doing it. So please welcome two of the Blast Beat boys of Calgary owns Wake. Dude, Ryan and Rob, thanks for joining me tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for having us, man. Glad to be here.
Of course. For the video people, Ryan, is the backline that you're calling from like Wake related, or is this a Google image that you
Oh
pulled
yeah,
off the
yeah, yeah.
internet?
No. This is Wake Backline circa 2019. Right at the beginning of the pandemic when I started transitioning a lot of meetings at work from regular meetings to Zoom meetings. I switched my background to this because I couldn't play shows anymore, so it was like the closest I could get to playing shows.
I got you.
It's actually like a lot of the people that I talk to actually like really like it a lot. They think it's pretty funny. So
Yeah, it's kind of like calling in from the gig, so to speak.
it's even dark in here, so there you go.
Rob more so is going for the horticulture plant life
Yeah.
kind of vibe, which
my
I
plants.
appreciate.
You got my green boys. You got my bed. I'm sitting on the floor.
Yeah.
Good.
We love that. So yeah, I'm really excited to have you guys both on the show. Like I said in the intro, there's been a number of things, and I think with some of the new album and some other exciting things when it comes to Wake, this seems like a good time. But before we get into the music chats, we obviously have to do a bev check for the episode. So Rob, I'm gonna get you to go first as far as what you're gonna be sipping on for the ep. Is that a bell pepper?
Yes.
It is mostly
I'm like, don't be pulling my leg here.
It is mostly water.
I guess so. So you got a water and a pepper. This vibe is already off to a great start. I was hoping that you were gonna cut it open and pour something into it, but
No, I'm not going to ruin the pepper, Spencer.
Is this a regular thing, Ryan, for Rob just to be eating peppers out of nowhere?
I have no idea. Maybe.
Maybe. What do you got, Bev wise? Are you gonna produce me out of nowhere?
This is a beer, which should come as no surprise if you know me.
Mm-hmm.
It's a Category 12 Juicy Data.
Juicy Data.
Creative names from these guys these days.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah.
Is that a brewery based here or Canada wise?
Yeah, they're definitely Canadian. I think they might be from Toronto. Where are they actually from? It is Victoria. I'm so wrong.
Oh, okay, cool. My bev is not too far off from your neck of the woods there, Ryan. So I'm checking a 33 acres of life, which is a brewery that's based in Vancouver,
Nice.
but I'm sure probably both of you would know that they have a spot that just opened up here in Calgary not too long ago.
Yeah.
This is a pretty nostalgic place because it's a spot that me and my wife frequented when we were on our honeymoon. So it's been sitting in the. We don't do a lot of evening recordings because most of the time, like we're doing this on a 10 a.m. on a Saturday and I can't bust one of these open. But this is the right time and the right vibe of episode to do so. Also have a Liquid Death on deck at all times. So yeah, so I guess Ryan and I will cheers our drinks, and Rob will cheers his.
Eat a pepper.
I guess. Yeah, excited to have you both on the show finally.
Right on. Cheers, man.
Cheers, Spencer.
I don't know if that's just a bit that you have been planning for a long time, Rob, or you're like, that was 5 minutes before the call started. So
no, I was gonna eat it before, but I just didn't have time. So
yeah, I mean, are you a yellow bell pepper boy, or you whatever?
Yellow or red? Yellow or red?
Okay.
Yeah, I never go with the green though.
Gotcha. Well, yeah, I'm excited to have you guys both on. It's been a long time since we've done a duo episode with two people, so I think that there's a few things that we can kind of break down. But it's both of your guys' first time on the Hardcore podcast, the Scoped Exposure podcast, to be more specific. So any new guests that I have here on the show, I always like to get a little bit of context about how people discover this thing we call like DIY or alternative or extreme music. So Ryan, let's start with you. Just tell me like some of the early instances that you were hearing, kind of like this kind of music that kind of put you on the path that you're on.
Oh yeah, that's easy. Like if we're talking about hardcore, it's kind of the same story as heavy metal. There was a used record store chain in Western Canada called Tramps back in the mid 1990s and early 2000s. And I used to play music with a childhood friend of mine named Chris Dadge, who actually plays drums for a lot of people, that Always band sometimes, and Chad Van Galen, and lots of people. But we had a band when we were 10 years old, 11 years old. We used to go to the Tramps and listen to records, and they'd let you, remember, I don't know, this might be before your time, Spencer, but they used to have like the CD stack station where you could take the CD up and they let you put it in and listen to it with the headphones.
Yeah, I did that back when I was growing up. Absolutely, yeah.
Nice. But yeah, I think it was 98, and they had a copy of End Hits by Fugazi there, and that was the first time I'd ever listened to anything that ever sounded like that. And I actually go toe to toe even today that's probably my second favorite Fugazi record, honestly. But yeah, and like really, when people ask me, where did you first hear heavy metal? It's actually the same answer. It's like, I went to Tramps and listened to a Slayer album when I was 12 years old. It was the same thing. So basically, thanks Tramps. I worked there when I was 20 in university too. So
wow.
Yeah,
that's very
pretty
full
much
circle.
I owe you everything, Tramps.
Right.
You're the best.
Yeah, it's a shame that interactiveness at record stores is not what it once was, where you can just grab something and plug it right in, versus now I don't think really there's anything like that these days.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, well, yeah, all of your investment's way higher when you can go in and hang out with the cool guy with the glasses and the Ragged Death shirt.
Right. I guess now you're able to.
Yeah, that was for you, Rob. There you go.
Yeah. I guess nowadays you could look at an album and be like, oh, what does this band sound like? And you can just pull it up on streaming. But like back then, you kind of had to gauge like, is this artwork, band name, and everything else cool enough for me to pay the $20 to $30 or whatever you were buying to take it home, and then either be like, is it a hit or is it a miss? And then, that self-discovery is just a lot different nowadays for sure.
But with that, when you had to spend, $20 or $30 on an import CD, and you're buying it on a whim, and, buying it purely based on what the album cover looked like and stuff, you had to take it home and you had to like really invest time into listening to that record. You know what I mean? Like, you spent $20, you had no idea you're really going to sit down and listen to it, and you're going to really try to enjoy it because you just spent your money on it. You're not streaming it. You just spent $30 on some CD and took a chance. You're going to really try to like that record. I think that's something that's a lot different now than back then, obviously.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think like that's it seems like Ryan's origin story is all in love of tramps and all that. Rob, were you also a trampese, or do you have your a very unique version for yourself?
I frequented Tramps for sure. Tramps was a big one. There was a bunch of locations in Calgary. I think they might have been all over Western Canada. I'm not sure. Ryan, were they only in Calgary?
No. They were in like I think I don't know if it went all the way to the coast, but they definitely were in the prairies for sure.
Oh, cool. Uh, I guess I have like multiple jump off points, but one would be I used to go up to Wainwright, Alberta for a few summers to visit my dad after my folks split. And we used to skateboard up there. And one of the kids that I used to skateboard with, his parents had satellite TV.
Mhm.
And I remember being in the basement of their house watching, it was like MTV or Much Loud, one of them. And a couple videos for like Bad Religion came on and Rollins band Disconnected. I remember that video for sure. And I was like, oh, whoa, this is really, really cool. And it was completely different. Like, I guess it was mid 90s, alternative rock was huge and stuff like that. But this stuff was just like a little bit different, a little bit more raw. And when I came back from that summer, the first thing I did was go to the music store and track down some of those CDs. And that was definitely a gateway right there. And getting just into those first initial bands, it was, yeah, a great starting point to get into more heavier stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like that's another. It's crazy how much the times change. Where there's been multiple people that have come on this podcast that talked about seeing the music videos and having those things, but like that's although that would be a goal for a lot of people today, it's just not as much of a thing. Or there's not really a destination place for a lot of that. Really, it's like you could put a music video or something on YouTube, but it doesn't have the same effect of it, being sandwiched in between a Burger King and a Pepsi commercial, if you know what I mean.
Sure.
So let's talk about like the very origin of Wake. Like I know you guys have been a band for like, it's double digits amount of years at this point, but like take me back to like way, way back to the beginning when, the conversations and the decisions of starting this project, obviously with no idea what was to come, way down the line. Was that in the ashes of another project, or was it just like people's first bands? Talk to me about that.
Wake really started with, I'd say like our first proper record was False. Everything before that was just kind of sort of demos and ideas and that kind of thing. And it was the first record that Ryan played on, which is crazy because it was 11 years ago, maybe 12 years ago.
Yeah, I think so. Like 10 or 11 years. I don't. Yeah, 2012. Yeah,
long time ago. And when that record came out, we kind of put the boots to the ground and just decided that we wanted to write music, record music, tour, play shows, and that was like our main focus and our main goals, I guess. The band's always been pretty goal orientated, so those goals have kind of always been those four things: write, record, tour, play shows, and spend our time hanging out in the van. And I'm trying to think what else.
So yeah, like out the get-go is like, this is a serious project. This is not like something that's like, oh yeah, we'll play some local shows and then some success off of a release came. It was like, we're gonna do this very, very seriously and see like what.
Well, I don't know. Like it depends, man. Like because I think we have a different attitude than a lot of people do, and from the beginning did too. Because look, we did records in a basement when we did the first records. Like that's just like any other band. Like you didn't go fly to LA and record an album, but at the same time, right from the beginning, we knew that we wanted to get in the van and tour. And I think a lot of people do it the other way around. They do their demo in a $1,000 a day studio, and then they just play local shows for 5 years. And I think the key to this band is that we always said it was always about being willing to get out on the road and tour. And I think there's a difference between not being serious and being serious and knowing that we wanted to tour. And
Sure,
I think that's really the key. I mean, what's a serious band? What's a soul? I don't know.
Well,
You
like,
tell me.
like, were there certain bands, at least at the time that you guys were starting? Because that definitely is there is a thing where there is like one band that's like it takes up that flag of like, no, we're gonna be the Road Dogs. We're gonna go out and play the States. We're gonna go and do these things. And like that helps expose, to the larger scene. But like the only other Calgary band that I knew at around the time that you guys were doing stuff that was touring as much um as you guys were doing was Mortality Rate. And then if you go a province over, like Stepping Stone was kind of the band in Regina for hardcore that was like really going out. And Calgary is already really isolated and pretty niche and small. And then Regina is like a quarter of that, if anything. But when I grew up in Winnipeg, there wasn't really like a flagship band that was like, we're going out and we're going on tour. Like Withdrawal did that for like a time, but like all those guys like got to a point where they couldn't do it anymore. So Ryan, to your point, like was it out of like no one else is doing it, so like we want to be that band that like goes out and does that, or were there other bands that you were seeing doing that inspired you to do so?
I mean, probably, I don't know. I don't want to speak for Rob, but like probably neither. It's honestly like kind of like there's just never been a time when not touring was an option. That's really it. That's just part of doing this. It's what we want to do. So that's it.
It kind of comes along with it. Like none of us in the band have ever really wanted to half-ass anything, and just it comes along with playing music. And I've been touring and booking tours for 24 years, like a long time. I've been doing it a very long time. And yeah, it's just, I can't stay away from it. I love it. And when I started Wake, I just, like I said, touring, recording, writing, that's what we want.
So I want to go back to the very first time I saw you guys live, which was Southern Alberta Hardcore Fest 2016. Scoped hadn't even started at this point, and I was just filming stuff under myself, and you guys played that fest. And the fest was definitely like a lot smaller than, what it is today, being Wild Rose. But I still remember having like a feeling while you guys were playing of like, this band is going to be something one day. And I remember I was talking to a friend of mine being like, just like the speed and the intensity of the drums and all of those things just was like, it was something that clearly like no one could look away from. And you guys are very good at what you do. So I guess like maybe just a selfish question, because we are primarily a hardcore podcast, like I am trying to branch out and get more people in different subgenres, which this is kind of like leaning a lot more into the metal world. But like when you guys would play like even shows even before that first time that I saw you, were you trying to like, because you had discovered hardcore and like some of those things, like when was the transitionary point where it's like, okay, like we're not opposed to playing hardcore shows, but we're definitely like a metal band and that's gonna be our bread and butter? I don't know if you have any clear indicators of when that transition started to happen.
I don't necessarily think there was a transition. I think that we have such a universal sound that we can kind of still play with anybody. I think that's something that's worked to our advantage over the 13 years we've been a band. And yeah, we will literally play with anybody. We're fans of hardcore. We're fans of death metal. We're fans of, all styles of music. And I think our music is pretty diverse where it kind of works with almost anything. Brian probably doesn't agree, but
no, it's exactly what I was gonna say. I don't see things as like hardcore versus metal. Like I don't know. There's not really a. I know that there's a tendency to consider things in the context of like what kind of shows you go to or whatever you needed categorization for things like that. I don't know. Like I was listening to Burnt by the Sun at the same time I was listening to Conqueror in 2003. Like there's not a lot of, it doesn't make it, I don't worry about it too much. Like it's really more about like at this, especially now, like in 2023, if you're out to call yourself a hardcore band, that's fine. But, I don't think it's necessary to do things like that anymore. I think you can just do whatever you want. I think the cultural milieu for underground music has reached a point where there's no hard line.
Right.
Like nobody puts on a hardcore show and goes, no, absolutely no type of this subculture of hardcore will be allowed at this show.
Sure.
Like that's just not, it doesn't happen. Like in my mind, and I mean, okay, like sure, okay, you can say like hardcore bands don't play Maryland Death Fest very often. Fine, like sure, that those things happen. But to me, like yeah, our band is a place where we don't have conversations like that. We
Yeah.
just it's just kind of an open forum. Like we'll play with anyone or do anything, and that's I mean I wouldn't want to be here if we didn't see it that way. And I know that everybody in the band. That's why I said I was going to say the same thing because we all have the same opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, like I use like hardcore is definitely a genre, but I use it as like a term as like kind of describing the culture and like the DIY and the alternative community that we've all like kind of grown up in and we've made our own imprint on. And yeah, like I definitely do see the potential of a Wake show that has like current staple local hardcore bands and having a bit of like, a like I wouldn't even call it like a mixed bill show at that point. Like I still think it's like all these bands are extreme in their own way. And, maybe there's gonna be different people that are gonna mosh and get all crazy to like in different ways to different bands, but I still think it's something like there's the classic trope of like, oh, this band is considered a hardcore band because they have hardcore members and they have people from those worlds that are just either playing death metal or they're playing shoegaze or they're playing whatever. But it is cool to see on how much you guys have grown and transcended and being able to do that, but still being in the know when it comes to the core.
Well, I'm thinking about this a little bit. Another part of this is that when the rubber hits the road, like you say, like, oh yeah, hardcore is like DIY, and it's like, well, you know what? When you have to do your own tours and when you have to do things yourself, and when you like we did for like I don't even know how many years. Rob started the band. I wasn't in the original version, but for the whole time, for at least 12 years, no, 9 years, there was no support. It was all DIY. So you know what? When you're playing in a lot of places, you don't go, we're going to play with a hardcore band. You go, we'll play with anybody who'll play with us.
Right.
Like you just get used to playing with whoever will play with you. And that's just sort of part of, yeah. And it goes across genres. Like any band will do that. If you really want to go out there and make your band work, you don't care what genre of bands you're playing with when you're touring. You just want to go out and play.
Yeah.
And really, I think, yeah, that's sort of, maybe some people are married to the idea of having their genre be all they do, but we can't all be Black Witchery. So it's you have to kind of break it up a bit and meet and play with the people who are just kind of out to do it the same way you are. So I mean, I think we arrived there by necessity, but that's just me.
Yeah, I definitely think that there's, you could probably be a little bit more picky and choosy of like stuff locally if it makes sense of what you're getting offered. But yeah, when you're out on the road, it's not like you're judging the lineup of your date in Kansas City or whatever. You're like, oh, we have a date? That's awesome. We'll see how it goes once we're there.
How else are you going to make your band work? Everybody has to do it. Yeah, you got to play with who'll play with you.
Yeah. So a big talking point, and this was something that I think is still like something where when people talk about Wake, at least on a local level, it's still like it's so crazy to have a band from here that's on Metal Blade. And I think roughly around the time that we were working on the Confluence documentary, that was like just kind of like coming to fruition. But you've talked about it on other podcasts. I think I've heard it from both of you on other podcasts of like, once you actually posted it, it was like kind of like an emotional like realization of how dynamic and dramatic and life-changing that is, not even just in the moment and the months leading up, but like, the next decade of the band's existence. Was there like a certain song, album, turning point, show that like kind of like caught them on your radar? And like talk to me about that, because I'm always like curious about like what are like what in the spider web of Wake's lore kind of like had that have the entry into your guys' world?
I think it was just a combination of hard work and how much we'd been doing. Right after Devouring, we got hit up by a few different labels that were all pretty interested. I think just from the press and the hype or whatever that Devouring got, and then we did Confluence right after that, and we talked to Metal Blade, and Metal Blade was super cool, and I guess we got on their radar through Devouring and touring, and they were interested, and they were really cool to us, and yeah, it was good.
Yeah. And Ryan, I think you said on a podcast where you were talking about that, where Metal Blade was, outside of the ones that maybe were hitting you up as far as future plans, like Metal Blade was the one that was like, oh, like that makes sense. Like that's like, was it very apparent? Like, oh, like let's wait around, or like, should we ship it? Like, should we, shop it around, or like, was that just like like this is the clear answer here?
Yeah, I mean, the thing about it is, it's like Rob said, it was the record. I mean, it wasn't any touring because we couldn't go on tour to support the record. So we could. And so, I mean, it was Devoured Ruin, and that was a record that kind of came out, and a lot of people just sort of, who hadn't really, I don't think, given us the time of day, kind of suddenly realized that it was a good idea.
Yeah.
So, but I think the key for that one was timing, though, because we really were like kind of, I don't know, we were in a place where we were ready to think about new ideas and new options, and they reached out to us at the exact right moment. I actually remember the day, and it was just kind of like it was just so synchronicity, and it would just kind of worked really well, and the people there really got us, and I don't know. I think that the main thing was really timing. It was just like, it was perfect timing. We're our own machine, and we can run with whatever. But they were ready to say, we're going to be the right piece of the puzzle. So, but yeah, to answer your question, and like Rob already said it, but like it was Devoured.
Right. Well, like, speaking of timing, for the listeners that don't know, as far as when certain releases were happening for you guys, Devouring came out March 2020, like the time where like the fucking like atom bomb is about to drop and our world is about to change. And I know all of y'all well enough that despite any hardship or any like bump in the road, as big as a global pandemic is a bump in the road, I know that Wake is a band that will continue and be like, okay, like we can't tour, like we're gonna write more music, we're gonna do this, we're gonna figure out ways that we can keep this going. So like from the time that drops, like are you allowed to say like what month? I'm not asking for the day and time specifically, but like I'm curious on, because I know there's a lot of bands that are popping both in metal and hardcore and all music that drop music right around that time, and shit was like scary, and there was a lot of unknown things. But I don't know if that there was like, it was April, it was 3 months after, it was 6 months after. I don't know if there was like a certain thing where it was like, oh, this is like our saving grace in the times of chaos.
It was, yeah, we had like a month-long tour booked right for the release of Devouring with Beneath the Massacre and Origin, and yeah, everything got shut down like days before we were supposed to leave. So we almost started to make the trip, and we would have got stuck in the US. It would have been really, really awful, but we got word in time, so we canceled the tour. And I think like a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks after we canceled, we were like, well, we got a lot of time. Let's start writing some more music. Like we've been writing music constantly for the last 2 years. What's another few months of writing an EP? And it worked really well. I think the songs are super strong on Confluence, and it's perfect follow-up to Devouring Ruin.
Yeah. So, sorry, just to go back to the question, when was the Metal Blade intro or beginning discussions after the Devouring release?
Oh, sorry. I thought you were asking me something else.
No, that's all good.
I think it was, I think it was right before Confluence came out. So Devouring, I think it would have been July.
I think we were doing the documentary like in the summer
July?
of 2020.
Yeah, July 2020 then.
Yeah. Okay, so it's still in the times where it's like, man, like a lot of people are sharing it online, but like again, we don't know how good the response to these songs because we're not able to play that live and like field test them to a degree.
Right.
Yeah, Ryan, were you gonna say something there?
No, just that. Yeah, it was while we were doing that record, and it just kind of snowballed from there. I mean, we had no idea what was going to happen because we didn't know when we were going to be able to do anything again. But and it's like it's really hard to gauge whether or not a release is something that works when all you have is like what people on the internet are saying. Because if anything in the last 5 years has proven is that what people say on the internet is not a good indicator of what the map is, not the territory.
Right.
It's generally a better idea to trust the experts who listen to music and manage record labels and production companies and they're the ones who will give the fairest assessment. But then again, when people are saying all these nice things about you on the internet, you're kind of like, wow, that's pretty cool. So it is what it is. It is what it is, I guess. But it's hard when you don't. I'm used to the cycled notion of like putting out a record and going on tour, and then that's how the promotion circuit works. And then you understand if it's doing well or if it's doing not so well. I mean, bands I played in before that's how you understand what's going on. And we just couldn't. It was just that everything was just the Wild West. There was just kind of, we put the record out into the void and went home. And it was just kind of like, okay. And then it just wound up being that a bunch of people were like, wow, this was a really good album. And it, yeah, I mean, in the context, it was nice, but it also was just, it was frustrating. I think we were all really frustrated because we all were already really excited about the record before it came out, and we never got a chance to go and show that to people. And it still feels like a bit of a void because, when we went on tour in the last couple of cycles that we did for the last year, it's like, well, okay, now we're playing the songs from Devouring Ruin, but it just kind of felt like, shouldn't we have done that in 2020? I don't, in your brain, it's kind of like a gap. Right. So I don't know.
And it's also the added extra time of before it's even been released, and you guys have written it, and you've probably listened to it a bunch of times on the Dropbox. Like, it already feels that much older, but adding the COVID time to it, it's that much worse.
Yeah, for sure. We're a band that's like always ahead of ourselves too. So it's always like the record comes out, we're already got another thing going. Like that's just the way it is. We've always been like that. It was like that for the whole time. And this was especially hard because it's like we're already 2 records ahead now.
Right. Oh,
so it's like whoops,
So I'm going to use this as a bit of a segue to just quickly talk about Confluence, and then I'm going to transition it into the new record. I've heard on other podcasts that, and you guys did a collab Bev, which very much intrigued me, but you did it with a brewery called Wake, which I was like, that's wild. But I think it's a bit of a missed opportunity that Confluence didn't do a collab with Confluence, which is a distillery here in Alberta.
Oh, Confluence makes great drinks.
True.
You do. I like that place a lot.
I really like their gin. And I think it was like, I think we started getting it right around the time we did our documentary. And I was just like, oh man, that's, once I heard about the Wake brewery, I was like, oh, well, I don't think that there's a brewery or a distillery called Thought formed to set, but
Yeah, I was gonna say you should start a distillery, dude.
Yeah, just off the Wake releases.
Call it Devouring Ruin. It'll be sick.
Yeah. Is there anything you guys want to say as far as the Wake beer drink collaboration that happened?
Those are our really good friends. We've known them for quite a few years now. Love to continue working with them. We talk to them all the time. We've played, they're from the Quad Cities. We played the Quad Cities a bunch now, purely based on them being there. Mm-hmm. They also do a really cool Wake Brewing Festival every year.
Oh, okay.
played that in 2022, and I don't know, maybe we'll make it back down there for 2024 or something. But they're good dudes. They make amazing beer, and they rule as people. So
And the
yeah.
story goes that you guys were just passing through the town when your manager was like, "Hey, did you know that there's a Wake Brewing?" Is that right?
I do like that you know the story. That's that's pretty good.
I do my research.
That's exactly what happened. Yeah, and we kind of rolled up, going like, we don't know who these guys are. I'm not. What's this going to be like? And like, honestly, Rob nailed it. Like they're just showing up as strangers, and like the next day, like we were friends. Like that night, like we hung out with them, and we had a show in a city 2 hours away, and Jason from Wake drove to the city that night to come and see us play. Like
That's some real dedication.
That's the kind of person he is. Like he's a really, he's a good guy. So but yeah, no, it was sudden, it was random, and it's wound up being like a really cool like long-term partnership, which is, I think, take them when you get them.
Yeah. It makes me think though, I'm like, what other extreme or metal bands also serendipitously are, have a brewery name attached to them? I don't know if you guys have done your research since this experience has gone down.
I think there's a brewery called Soul Control. What do you think?
Oh.
Probably not.
I mean, if you're a brewery and you know that there's a band named after and you're not doing a collaboration, I have a problem with that.
Missed opportunity,
exactly. So, unfortunately there's no thought form descent, brewery or distillery yet, that at least I know of, but that's the new record that y'all put out. A lot of people have talked about the artwork of that record, which is funny because metal people are just any showgoers. It's like, yeah, black pants, black shirt. Here's my black and you guys started with like very just black and white artwork. Threw a little bit of purple in for Devouring. And then, I thought it was like, oh, these guys are bold with Confluence, like doing like a lot of teal and a lot of color. And then this came out, I was like, oh, the sky is the limit when it comes to all those things. I think, Ryan, you said on a podcast that the person that did that artwork is the same person that did some artwork for Baptist.
Well, she does a lot of photography. So she did the Bushcraft cover, if I recall correctly. And she's also was the art director for Southern Lord for a long time. So
oh wow, okay.
Yeah, she's done quite a lot of work. I mean, to be honest, I think it was really a lot of the genesis for that was kind of, I think, Rob's idea, because we all are always trying to do something that wasn't the thing we did last time. And if you can come up with an idea, then that's the best currency there is. And we just thought it would be fun to like write her and see what she had in the hopper. And it's funny because that's the kind of idea that we probably would have shot down 10 years ago, but now it was just perfect. I don't think there wasn't really anyone who was like, I don't know if we should do this. Everybody was kind of like, yeah, this makes sense. And her style is really photo oriented. Like, okay, I think she did that Merker album, right, Rob? That was the one she did too.
I'm not 100% sure, but she could have.
Okay, well, the style of photos that she uses is really like the iconic like high contrast photo style, and not really like our lane. And that was, I think, what we just all kind of said, you know what, that's why we have to do it, because I think there's no time when challenging people is a bad idea. And that's one thing we all share, is that's just never a bad idea.
Yeah.
So,
one thing that we did talk about too is the overall feeling of the record kind of had like a psychedelic vibe to it. And with her art also has like a classic, that 70s psychedelic art type thing. Like to me, I don't know how many people would agree, but the Thought Form Descent kind of reminds me like almost like a Black Sabbath. Like if Black Sabbath really,
I could see that.
Still in the 70s or whatever, if they put out an album today, like that's the style of art that they could have used. It just looks super classic. She's such a talented lady, and yeah, you check out her art and her photos. She's absolutely amazing.
Yeah. I like what you said, Ryan, about like if it's something that we feel challenged or we should like there's things that we're like, can we do that? Maybe we should actually do that. And I think that's been a thing for a lot of bands where it's like not really overthinking the creative decisions, whether it's musically or merch wise or like the way that they're going about it. Like a lot of, a lot of it is just being, tested out like in the flesh, and I think that's really cool. And if anything, like that is a way for you to really really know if it's the thing for your band or not, because either you will print a better bunch of shirts that you'll be sitting on for a long time, or you'll like sell out like within 5 seconds.
Yeah, like here's a similar example. Like, look at Harm's Way. Look at the cover of Posthuman. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's an album cover that doesn't look like what you would think of for that kind of music at all.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the kind of record cover that they just said, this is perfect for what we did, and we're gonna do it, and it doesn't matter if it shares the qualities of what other people would think is applicable. And
Right.
I don't know. That's just, I think anyone making creative anything should always be able to have that conversation with their peer group and with themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go, we're making a record, we're making a certain kind of record, this is what the covers always look like, we should make the cover look like this, I think you can step it up.
Yes.
And you should try if you can. And you know what, honestly, like whatever, like I'm not going to tell somebody what to do. I just
Well,
I
you
just
kind of
do
are
think
right
that
now.
well, if by saying be creative, I'm telling someone what to do, I think you should probably do that. That's
Right.
definitely.
Uh,
But I think Harm's Way actually is a great example, because
yeah, it really
that's a
is.
band where people see that as just this kind of like, it's a heavy metalcore band that plays metalcore songs, but they tried really hard to make that an interesting concept piece that had a lot of interesting commentary from their own angle. I really do see it that way, and that means that they did a good job. So
Yeah.
I think that's what we're always trying to do.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that record and that artwork specifically. So great example. The new record has been out for almost a year. It's coming up on that, and you guys have been able to play a lot of those songs off of the last leg of touring. Correct?
Yes,
Cool.
lot.
So
Too many.
too many times. So this is very exciting for me because I like to ask this question to bands and members of bands who have like a large discography of music. But this is the first time on the podcast that we're actually doing this question with both people or two members of a band. So the question is, don't say it at first because I don't want to have subtle influences or oh well he said that so of course I'm gonna think that. But tell me in both of your opinions, most overrated Wake song and most underrated Wake song. So again, I think that this could be different, obviously, to individual people of a band, but Ryan might have a different thing based off his role doing synth and bass versus Rob just doing guitar. So I don't know. You guys want to take a little bit of time? I don't know if the choices have popped right into your head. But Rob, let's start with you when it comes to overrated songs, in your opinion, and then we'll jump to Ryan.
Oof, all of them? No. Fuck, that's a hard one. I guess.
And again, overrated could be like, I'm tired of playing this song and like, but I know it's the crowd favorite. It's the one that people always come and talk to me.
Swallow the Light. I played Swallow the Light. Probably, I think we did between July and now. I think we probably played close to 80 shows,
Mm-hmm.
and I played that song a lot. So I still like that song. I just think it's a little overrated, and I've played it a ton. Underrated?
Well, before you hit that, I'm curious if Ryan agrees or has a different pick when it comes to overrated songs.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think we have an overrated song. Mostly because I don't think anyone's ever overrated any Wake songs. Um, hmm, well, I don't think it's Swallow the Light.
Okay.
I would maybe say the first song on Devoured Ruin, Kana Tavora.
Hmm.
That only because it shows people's hand when they only listen to the first song of a record.
Hey.
Interesting.
So there you go.
Yeah. It's the classic, like, oh, look at my album, and all of the songs are just like decreasing as far as streams and listens because
Well,
people only listen to the first.
that's another conversation.
Right. Ryan, let's do underrated songs for you. What is an underrated Wake song that, either you haven't played live, you wanted to pull back something from the archives to jam a little bit more? Anything come to mind?
I think Torchbearer is underrated.
Okay.
It's a 10-minute song on Devoured Ruin and I know people do like it. A lot of people tell me they like it, but at the same time, I think if you make it to the end of that, you can. That's like the whole band for 10 years caught up in one song. I think so.
Okay.
So that's my pick.
Okay. Rob, what about you? Underrated.
I 100% agree with Ryan over Torchbearer.
Okay.
It's also very hard to work into our set because the song's like 10 minutes long. So I don't know. If more people liked it, I guess we could, but it doesn't really matter.
Right.
But for me personally, I think an overlooked song would be Disparity and Chaos. EPs in general usually get looked over because they're not a proper full album or whatever, but that's the first song on Confluence, and I don't know. I think it's maybe my favorite song we ever written. I wrote most of those riffs when my dogs passed away over COVID, so it's got like a special place to me. And yeah, I think it's one of our top 5 solid songs for sure.
Yeah. That actually brings up a pretty interesting thing that I was thinking about asking, but I didn't know how I was gonna shoehorn it, or if it was gonna be shoehorned in, or if there would be a nice natural transition. Do you guys have to say no to different opportunities because the amount of time that you have to play your set is just too small for like a proper debut of Wake material? Like if it's like, hey, we have a 15-minute slot at the show, and you're like, that's like 3 songs for us.
I think at this point we've gotten to the point where we haven't had to play or only get offered like a 15-minute slot. Like
Sure.
even on support tours, we still get a 30-minute slot. But even that is a little tough for us. Like I think we're working on set stuff right now, and I think we're playing 4 songs, so that can be difficult for sure. But
yeah.
I think
Which is funny because that's like a hardcore band's length of music, but it might only be like 9 minutes. But for you guys, it's like 30 minutes plus.
I think even with the headlining spot, we try to keep it 45 minutes max. Nobody wants to watch music. Nobody wants to see a band for more than 40 minutes anyway. So
I think also think that if like a fest that was really good said you can only play 15 minutes and it was a good setup, we'd probably still make it work. I don't know. We could do anything. Like it's fine.
Well, okay. What's the Wake 15-minute perfect set? Let's make it right now. Torchbearer. 1.5 times.
Yeah, we'll just play it again.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, it depends on the day. I mean, that's what I mean. Is the reason why it would work is because we'll figure something out. It'll be whatever we all decide is the right thing for that, and that's the way it'll be. Like, and also like we're just not the kind of band that would say, look, we deserve X time. We would just be like, well, if we want to do it, we'll find a way to do it. Like it's, and if we don't, we won't. It's simple. Like it's just that's the kind of, and I mean that's the reason why I still really like playing in the band, because that's the kind of people we all are. We just kind of say, we're not the kind of people that would say, how dare you? We'll never play for 15 minutes. No one in the band is like that. We're just the kind of people who would say, well, I mean, if it sounds fun, we'll do it. Like that's cool,
right.
Like, or not, whatever,
And you reminded me of something. I think we played a festival in Oakland or San Francisco. I think it was called Dead Fest. And I think that we did play, I think all the bands that played except for 3 headliners. I think there was like 20 bands 20 bands a day, 10 in each room, and I think it was 15 minute slot times.
Mm.
And yeah, I don't know what we played, but we did play for 15 minutes. And
Yeah, like it's like we're not worried about it. Like it's if we have to play 50 minutes and we don't think it's a waste of time, we'll do it.
Mm.
And if we have to play 45 minutes and we don't think it's a waste of time, no problem. Like
Yeah.
it's fine. Like it's all good. Like I don't know. You gotta. I think enough bands in this realm have one crucial flaw, and that's that they can't read a room.
Mm.
They don't understand that like the people watching you are there to watch you for, you know, a specific reason at that specific time, and you need to be able to understand what you're going in for. And I think a lot of people look at their set as like this clandestine thing on this one side, and then the show is just this thing that happens with their clandestine set. And it's like, no, you're just the clandestine set is supposed to serve the show.
Yes.
Like you're not getting paid for your magic set. Like you're there because
Right.
people are willing to show up, and like you need to. That's part of what you're doing is being there for what they want. And if they want 15 minutes, we'll give them a sick 15 minutes. And if they want 45 minutes, then we'll give them a sick 45 minutes.
Right.
It's cool. Like
Has
whatever works.
Has there ever been a show where you guys have to kind of adapt and be on the fly of like you said, Ryan, like reading the room, like should we axe a song or should we axe like something on the fly, or is it
Oh
been, like-
yeah.
yeah?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh, definitely. 100%. Yeah. Colorado Springs in 2019. There you go.
I remember like it was yesterday.
Yeah. I mean, hey, I think that's part of being a good band. I mean, you know, like if you look at like James Brown in the 1960s, you know, him and his band could do anything. Like like they play an extra song, they cut a song in half and they jam for 5 minutes. Like that's what playing music is all about, man. Like you got to be able to do that.
Yeah. Rob, do you have any thoughts on that? Or has Ryan said it all?
he pretty much summed it all up.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So one thing that I wanted to ask, which is kind of tied to what Ryan was saying, is like, what I see, because I've gotten the privilege of getting to work with y'all and get to see some of like the jams and the behind the scenes of that, and it seems like it's not like someone is coming to the band and being like, hey, here's the song, here are the parts, here are the drum midis that I've written. There's a lot of like, okay, here's the idea, and then we build upon it together. And there's a lot of individuality when it comes to, you know, Ryan, I think on the documentary you were saying it's like a lost art for the bassist to be able to do their own thing when they want to, not just like I have to follow the root note of all the guitar stuff. Was that practice of like kind of being a band that can jam together and can like, hey, I'm going to do this while you do this, and it's actually going to complement one another and not just, you know, be jarring in any way? Did that come over time, or was that like right out the gate when you guys were starting?
Oh, I mean, that's kind of a tough question because I think for the group, definitely not the way the band started at all. But I honestly think that my experiences as a musician are that most of bands in this kind of format don't do that, but the bands that can get there kind of that's like a really good skill to have. Like that's like sort of something that you can arrive at with practice. And you know, there's a reason why musicians were like that in the 1970s, because that was how you were able to prove that you could do what you needed to do in order to get through the process of putting a record together in the 1970s, which was a much more challenging process than it is now. And I think when bands today who don't have those challenges get to that space and learn that like, oh, actually this is a powerful skill that has a lot of value, they progress well. And I think Wake started out a little more like where we were really interested in doing one thing, and then over time it got to that point where that was something that I think became a skill that we realized was valuable. And I had done time in other bands that were really, really big improvisers before, but I think I tried to bring that to this group, and they were the thing that separates them from a lot of people is they were really receptive and really willing to sort of really, like Rob said, like it just everybody gets up and goes, this is a new challenge. We'll have to work at it. We have to learn how to do this. We have to learn how to, and they did. And I think it was definitely not from the beginning, but it was a pleasant surprise how well the learning curve improved, and how well people took to realizing like, hey, we don't have to just knock out a record and quantize everything, and everybody just sends each other MIDI and that's the end of the album. It's you can go like, hey, if we're all really good at doing this and we spent a lot of time in the room working on this, when we get there, it's going to turn out a lot better because we're going to have more time, and when someone goes, can you change this on the spot? People are going to go, I actually can, because I know how to do it now.
Right. Not like, give me a week. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
like that's part of if you want to be a musician, that's part of, you need the skill set. And I think the people in this band didn't have it halfway through, and then worked their butts off and got really good, and saw like, oh, this is a good skill set, and we took it and ran with it. So yeah, but I mean, everything's growth. No one knows everything from the beginning.
Right.
I mean, that's just part. It's all just part of doing the time in the room. Like, you have to do that.
Yeah. Rob, maybe like being the person that was like, when this idea was introduced to you, like, what was that biggest learning curve, at least when it came to like how was that for you when it came to like changing your mind when it came to songwriting that way for you?
I think the general being of Wake is, from the start, is I kind of just came up with riffs and basic ideas, and like first couple records I'd have more of my hands on all of the songwriting. But after False and after Ryan kind of joined, it kind of just branched out from there, where the point was I was still writing riffs, but having more hands in the cookie jar was way better for all ideas. Like, having one person write everything is just, I don't know, it's one-sided, more how do you say, like, I guess more, the more the merrier, especially when it comes to songwriting. It's more organic. There's a lot more ideas. I find that we've been doing it this way so long that we can just, it's kind of crazy how fast and how detailed we can get with trading off ideas, how we can try one thing and automatically jump to something else, which is, it gets pretty hectic in there when we're writing. And just the way that the band has adapted to that style of writing, and just being able to change, go from this riff to this timing just in the blink of a minute, and it's a blink of an eye, sorry. And yeah, it's really cool, like, even just everybody as individual musicians, my chord isn't a proper chord until I have Ryan's bass behind it, because it's not anything like what I'm playing in that riff. You know what I mean? He makes it. Arjun is the same, and Kyle's vocals. Like, it's like, I don't know. It's just such a group effort, and our sound is so layered and so just different because of the players, right?
Yeah.
So,
I love how you said it. I love how you said it there, where it's like my thing actually doesn't make sense without this other member. Not like if you soloed it and isolated it, yeah, it can make sense. Like, obviously with 4 or 5 other dudes and what they're doing, it becomes a song. But I like that idea where it's like, I'm experimenting in something where it's like, I need the bass, or I need the guitars, or the drums, or the vocals even, to like help complement it to make sense. I really like that analogy.
welcome.
Yeah. So you were mentioning about always like Wake is a band that seems to be always in like a state of self-improvement and like getting better. And like we said at the top of the episode, like, Wake's been a band for double digits amount of years. There's been a lot of years like pre the Metal Blade acquisition. In all that time, like, did you guys just have like a North Star that you were kind of like chasing, or was there any moments within all the years of like the band being built up where it was like, have we just overstayed our welcome? Have we do we have another record in us? Were there any things individually for you guys or collectively as a band that was like, maybe it's time? And the
No.
reason, and I kind of knew that was the answer, but the reason that I ask is that, like there's been so many things for Scoped or just different things in my own personal life where it's like, oh, like I'm actually just like one thing away from like that huge door opening. But sorry, Rob, you were saying the hard no when it comes to that answer.
I think it comes down to the four things why we do it. We do it to tour, to play shows, to write, and record. We do it for ourselves, and that's it. And I don't know. It's just what we do. Like, none of us have kids. This is what we're into. I think that we're all kind of at that age where we're in the lifer boat. So I don't know. I think that we just love what we do so much, and there's never really, at least for me personally, I don't want to answer for everybody else, but for me at least, it's what I've always wanted to do and what I'll continue to keep doing. So,
Ryan, what about you?
Yeah, I don't know. Every year I ask myself about what I'm doing in my life and whether or not I can keep going. Not just music, everything, anything. You know, fitness, training, career,
Mustache growing.
yeah, very definitely. That's probably the first to go, really. But and every year, some and like you have to be honest with yourself. Some years it's harder than other years. Sometimes you go, maybe I should quit and maybe not. But I don't know. It's pretty hard for me to take a really objective look at my life and see it without at least having a format for doing this way. And this has been a really good format for me doing this way for so long that it's really hard to say. It would have to be something pretty extreme for me to be to when the way you framed it is to say like, you're one record away from making it. It's like I'm not really sure that that's how I look at it, but I am sure that I'm looking at it like with the flip coin, where it's like I'm one thing away from just disappearing. But it's pretty high though. It would need to be like a pretty big. I'd have to like get cancer or something, I think.
Sure.
Like it would have to be something like pretty serious, like that really because it's kind of like, which I think it's okay, whatever, it is what it is, but like because this is all to say, I think people need to ask themselves questions like this, and I think you need to take stock of yourself, and you need to ask, how long am I going to do this for? Why am I doing this? Why am I not doing other things? It's important for people to ask questions like that in their own lives, and if you can't ask yourself hard questions like that, are you really paying attention to what you're doing? And I think that I've never come to an end of a year and said, I'm only doing this because I can't think of anything else to do.
Yeah.
It's never been anything like that. It's always like, no, I have a lot of good reasons to keep doing this, and that's it.
Yeah. And,
Oh,
and
there
you
you
know,
go.
like the core four, if I'm going to quote Rob there, as far as, writing music, recording it, playing shows and touring, is that the core four? Is that the official Wake core four? Okay.
core four.
Even in the state of a global pandemic where one of those core four is kind of taken away, obviously like shows within Alberta were gone for a bit, but there was like some restrictions and there was other ways to go about it. It wasn't like, oh, now Wake is only operating at 75%. It was like all that energy from touring is just pumped into writing more music and writing better music and all that. And yeah, like I really think that I like what you said, Ryan, about like having that, like, why am I doing this? And that could be something that you've done for 6 months or 6 years. And that's been something that I know that I'll be doing Scoped Exposure forever. I think the way it looks and how I, give different focuses to things is always going to change. Like I couldn't have imagined like the amount of, effort from the podcast side, from the live set side that's going to be, because I've honestly thought like might be a day where it's just a podcast and I'm not, able to go out and document as many shows as I want to, and I just want to focus on this, and that just makes more sense. Um, and maybe that's just like what I want to do, aside from like whether it's the thing that's opportunity wise that's making the most sense for me. But um, I love that you guys as a band and as individuals have just always had an unrelenting vision when it comes to this band existing and this band being present in the space.
It really comes down to the members too. It's Ryan's always had this thing where it's like, we'll just make it work. And like, I remember when he said that early on, it's just literally anything that gets thrown at us, any problems or issues or anything like that with this band just kind of always made things work. And, we all have different lives. We all have jobs. Everybody has different life, like a different lifestyle. And, we just make things work, and we have, and we'll continue to do so.
Mm-hmm. Have, because you guys have done a lot of touring, have you guys have had any funny or notable interactions with people assuming things because you're the Canadian band on the bill and you're the band from Calgary?
Nobody knows where Calgary is.
Oh,
You think it's on Mars or Saturn?
No, I'm just joking. I don't know. I don't think so. We had a good one with the Wayfarer guys on the last tour. They like to give us some good ribs. I feel like they're from Denver though, so they kind of like know more Canadian people than a lot of people in the U.S. So they
Sure.
knew what buttons to push. So that's like, all right, it's kind of more like a joke than anything else.
Sure. Okay.
I don't know. Most Americans are pretty chill with Canadians. It's good.
Yeah.
I mean, I had one of the guys from Call of the Void come up to Calgary once, and he started asking me questions about the Wi-Fi. He said, "I heard your Wi-Fi is really bad up here."
What?
Yes. Yeah, I was like, "What?"
Oh, I don't know this one.
For real?
Who is going and spreading misinformation around that Canadians have bad Wi-Fi?
Canadians, bad Wi-Fi. Don't
I
go
mean,
there.
before we got going, Rob's Wi-Fi was a little sus, but we figured it out.
It's true. It's true.
It's true.
Maybe it's just my house.
Yeah, maybe.
Wow, it's because you live in Canada. I mean, you're the town of Canada.
Sorry, my igloo's not producing enough Wi-Fi signals.
You gotta carve a better plug-in, dude.
Oh no, it's melting. So speaking of Alberta as well, like something that I think I've like come around to having a different perspective on, because I think anyone can just say, oh, a band from our like local scene gets a bigger opportunity, like getting on a record label or getting to go and do all these tours. They owe it to the local scene to be able to like shout out the bands and have that trickle down effect. I've kind of had the reverse of that in the last half a year now, like just having more conversations with people that is nice, but it's like Wake doesn't owe anything to Calgary to be able to do that. It's not to say like you guys will still go out and play like Loud as Hell and Six of God, which are like cool shows that like on paper like it's not like the biggest thing for the band, but you're like, oh, like that's something that we can chase. I was just kind of curious if you guys had any thoughts or perspectives on that when it comes to like a band from any local scene, doesn't need to be Calgary, has a kind of big opportunity, and where in the, not responsibility isn't the right word, but like where in the signs of gratitude it is to like, help share the wealth, or is there any wealth that needs to be shared? I'm just kind of curious on your guys' thoughts there.
Nobody owes you shit. Do it the way you want to do it, and that's it. Don't do things to get a shout out. Like there's a lot of hardworking bands in Calgary that are actually doing things like Trench, like Deathress, like you guys. Like you guys are going out there, and you guys deserve respect for it, and that's it. Like, major props to all those bands, and yeah, just do it yourself and do it how you want to do it, and don't do it looking for any other reason to do it,
Mm-hmm. What do you think, Ryan?
I don't know anybody anything. but I owe a lot of people
Well,
a lot
except
of
for
things. A lot of things.
the
You know.
record store that you were listening to CDs from.
Well, I mean, I don't owe anybody anything, but I owe a lot of people a lot of things.
Okay.
So if you unpack that, it's like if it's a generalized idea that's I owe a lot of people because X, that's not the way it works. But there's been a lot of people in my life and in the lifespan of
You owe
the
me
time
50
I've.
bucks, dude.
I think you owe me $50. I'm pretty sure that's the way this works. No, I mean it's more like I just the point of what I said was as a blanket statement. Don't think about it as debt, but when people are reach out to you and do you a favor, then you do have a responsibility to say that you are working with other people in this context and that you do owe them in a way. Like but the problem is when people say, you owe me in the context of anybody. Like, you can, it's just a matter of the specificity of the interaction. If someone does you a solid in the context of what you're working on, it's good for you to look that in the eye and say, look, we do have something that we share between each other, but when somebody goes, hey, you owe the scene, it's kind of like, well, tell me a little more about how that works.
Right.
Need a little more info, man.
Yeah. Like I think like for, it could be any band. It could be a band like Turnstile or a band like Knock Loose. It's not like, oh, Knock Loose needs to bring out all these Kentucky bands. It's like, well, they could put on an awesome local show where they get to do that, but like it's not like every single opportunity that they have to check this box of being able to like reference where they're from, because they're already going to say that on stage. They're already going to do these things, and there's going to be a bit of like a breadcrumb trail effect off of like, oh, Wake's from Canada, what other metal bands are from Canada? And then they'll find the Trenches, the Snake Pits, and all of those bands kind of in between.
The Voivods,
The
for
Voivod.
Sure. Yeah, definitely.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that I think a lot of people just on the outside will just think one specific thing that like a band like you guys are getting. It's like, oh, we got the on like Wake's on Metal Blade. Now this is going to be a great thing for Calgary. I think great for Calgary in perpetuity, but I don't think that it's like this. Oh, by the way, let me just make you a playlist, Metal Blade person, and just so you know, like I feel like that's not something that any band should carry on their backs. I think it's like something of that magnitude that you guys got should be celebrated. It's, to me, I think it's still talked about as far as how cool it is. And if anything, you guys have clearly earned it with the amount that you guys have done as a band, and the right people saw it at the right time.
For sure. I hope inadvertently that it does show some like shine a spotlight on the Calgary scene and the Alberta scene, because we have so much good music here.
Mm-hmm.
And when we can, like, we don't play Alberta a ton. We play Calgary and Edmonton maybe once a year. And when we do, we try to play with as many local bands as we can and try to shine that spotlight on the amazing music that's here. I could go on and on about music here. There's a ton of it.
Right.
And I think if people look, they see and hear a lot of good bands here.
Mm-hmm. Here's an interesting question. Favorite Calgary show in the entirety of the band's existence, and why?
That we played?
Yeah.
Or okay. Probably the National Music Center show in 2019.
Okay. We were there. We filmed that.
Yeah, you did. Mm-hmm. That's right. That was a good show.
He's on the call as well.
That was cool. It was just the kind of thing where, like, I've been playing shows in Calgary since the 90s. It's tough to get resources to do things like that sometimes. And the people who were managing that effort did a great job and have worked their butts off. And it was cool to be part of it for a minute.
I'm gonna have to agree with Ryan. That show was unreal. I still have no idea why they invited us to play that show. But
Yeah,
It
it
and
did
definitely
seem
something
out of
like-
character. It was cool. It went really good. I mean, I got there and I had never been inside before. And it's kind of like, for people, obviously this is locals only at this point, but for people who don't live in Calgary, it's like this kind of like newer, like foreboding building that's like kind of a sort of this it's like a lot of resources went into making it this cool place right by City Hall, and it's
Right.
like this, wow, it's this new thing. So we got there, and I kind of was like, this is probably they're gonna realize they made a mistake pretty fast when they get us up to the room where they usually have like concertos with like classical music and stuff, and it was pretty cool because that's not really what happened at all. A lot of people came, a lot of people showed up, a lot of people, and it was a great time. A lot of people had fun. A lot of people came up to me after and was like, I'm really pumped you got to do this, and I'm really pumped we got to come, because it was an interesting juxtaposition of kind of like a place where it's set up to, the room is this complex, like detailed sound design room made for classical music, and they invited us to come play in it. And, there's like
play
six,
fucking distorted guitars and blast beats.
like it's like 6 techs like doing all the stuff, and we're like, yeah, this, I mean, thank you for the great mix. This is really good. And I just kind of kept expecting it to fail, and it didn't, and it really did not. It went amazing. It was it was pretty cool, because I think that, and this is me editorializing, I think you've been talking a lot about Calgary tonight, Spencer. You've saying Calgary this and Calgary that, and like I'm from here as well, and I think Calgary's had a problem with the arts for a long time. They just don't, and not a problem like they don't get the arts. They just don't know how best to invest in it, and I think that was a chance for our band to really feel like we were a part of something that actually worked out.
Yeah.
Locally, like it was like
agree.
it was like.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like we got a chance to do something good, and it felt like we also got to witness a good investment that a group had made in our city.
Yeah.
And I know it's not a public investment; they're like a private group or whatever, but it doesn't matter. They did a great job of putting it together, and it just felt good to be part of it. So yeah.
Yeah. And I do think that, and I would like to think and hope that there's a shift that's happening, not only with like the awesome bands that are coming through here or coming from here, from multiple different genres. Like I think when Scope did a few shows, like we were documenting some shows that had, I think the Wake, it was the January Wake show at Dickens that like Factor Canada was like sponsoring, and like we got hired to be able to film it. And it's like I would just pay the door fee and ask Dickens staff if I could film this. But the fact that there was like a bit of a shift, at least on that side, to be able to like pay the bands, pay people who are working that, and in that heavy music spectrum, I like to see and hope that there's a continuation of that in years to come. And there's a shift in not only Calgary but Canada when it comes to heavier music, because that's the ultimate goal when it comes to Scoped, is like to be able to grow and document the growth of our subculture in Western Canada. So here's to hoping.
Platform Descent release show at Palomino was really, really good too. That was probably, they're tied for me. Those are my 2 top shows.
Mm-hmm. So we're heading towards the end here, but I have to ask, because we're gonna drop this episode around the time that before the winners of this, but Wake, and I can't believe this is a sentence I've never said before, as wild. Wake is nominated for Juno, which is absolutely wild to have any heavy music band of any magnitude to be able to be doing that. I don't know how, like, we're going to drop this just before the Junos. I think the date of that, we talked about that. But how wild is that for you guys who are, you're seeing your names next to that logo with all these other nominees? What was your feeling when that came into the picture for y'all?
It was great.
I'm like, don't one at a time, please.
It blew my mind. Even to this day, it's pretty crazy. And honored to be put in that category. And Brian Adams, Brian Adams won a Juno. Neil Young's won a Juno. All
Wake
these.
might win a Juno.
Wake's gonna win a Juno.
Wake's gonna win a Juno.
Yeah, it's nice. It's cool to be appreciated, and we love where we're from, and the Junos are a big deal up here. So it's nice for them to recognize and nominate Thoughtform Dissent.
Mm-hmm. Ryan, are you anti-award? That's why you hesitated to answer.
No. I just didn't know if
you were being
Rob had something to
polite.
say.
You were being polite.
Yeah, no, it's good. It'll be fun, and a lot of. I'm actually unclear on how they select the nominees for this, but they've done a great job in the past. So yeah, it's interesting. I mean, obviously someone's paying attention, so it's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we should be proud because I think in many ways we're lucky to be from Canada. We're lucky people.
Mm-hmm.
But in the context of music, yeah, it's good to be in a peer group where there's. I look at the list of people who'll be at the event, and you're like, I know some of these people, and you're like, okay, yeah, these are good people. It's good. It's good. Like, I don't know. Yeah, it's definitely something where it's like you don't want to spend too much time thinking about stuff like that, or it'll affect the work. But on the other hand, it's kind of like, well, if it brings people together, then it's probably a good thing. So that's good.
Yeah, Rob, you go.
Just being happy that we're nominated. That's it.
Right.
Yeah, it's good. It's good to be, it's nice to be part of a group of people where it's like, yeah, I mean, a lot of those people that, I respect them quite a bit. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm very not perplexed is not the right word, but I'm very in awe of all the cool things that are happening in the Wake camp. But again, I know that you guys have worked very hard for this in the last, 10 plus years. And I think, this could be just the tip of the iceberg for y'all. And to be able to call both of you guys, not only acquaintances, but friends, and to see all like the dope stuff, even, being asked to do stuff like the scope session that we did for the Decibel live stream, it's just been really cool. And I think I'm hoping, and I will be avidly tuning in to see that acceptance of the award. So hoping for the best for y'all. Have you guys discussed who's going to do the honors as far as the receiving of hopefully said award?
We have not discussed that, but I'm sure we will.
Who's on speech duty is what I'm trying to ask.
Well, I don't know. Probably me or Kyle. I don't know. See, I just want to say thanks a lot for all your help over the years too, Spencer. You've the documentary, all the scoped exposure stuff, the live shows. We really appreciate you.
Oh, you're gonna make me blush. So before we wrap up, guys, I have one final question before we do the shout outs and the, all that kind of stuff. And I ask this for every guest at the end of the episode. Tell me a favorite mosh related story that's right off the top of your head. So that could be wholesome, gruesome, funny, happened at a Wake show or just at a show that you were attending, whatever mosh related thing that both of you want to end on. And, 2 guests on one podcast episode means we have to hit on at least 2 episodes. I'm not going to say that if you got some quick ones that you want to go through, I'm all for it. But Ryan, you go.
I got punched in the head by John Pettibone.
Oh. Okay.
That's it.
That's it. During which band?
Black Breath.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So you want the whole story?
Well, I don't want the.
I thought the soundbite. The soundbite was good enough. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. We played with Black Breath in 2010 in another band I was in, and I think we played with Eris, which is the band that John played in, and pumped for Black Breath, and so was he. And that's it.
All right, short and sweet. I like it.
I've seen Extreme 2012. A guy got up on stage and he was dancing around like an idiot and fell over and broke his leg, fell off the stage and split his leg. So bad that the bone popped out of his jeans
Oh no,
during our
I
set.
hate that.
Yeah,
Was he wearing a
During
banana
your
suit?
set?
during our set?
Oh wow.
He was fucked up. But
Who was the closest member to said exposed bone?
me.
You. It's traumatized me the most.
It's funny because when we got back, he messaged the band account. He was just like, "Hey, it's me, the guy that broke his leg during your set." I was like, "Oh, cool, dude."
How could I forget?
That's right. I will never forget that ever.
Wow.
But yeah, that's probably the most gruesome, nasty mosh related story
Yeah.
I have.
And you're like, I am in the middle of this riff right now, and I have to watch you be a buffoon and be
Yes.
man, that is wild. Well, two great stories, short and sweet on both. Ryan and Rob, I really appreciate both of you all giving us some time coming on the pod. Anything you want to shout out, anything you want to plug, or anything you want to send the people off with before we go?
No, just thank you very much for having us, and we appreciate you. And very happy we finally got to do this.
100%. Ryan, do you got any shout outs?
Oh yeah, no major plug. I mean, yeah, Wild Rose Hardcore Festival and you guys. So thanks for doing what you do. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you for, recognizing it. Definitely go listen to Wake. New record is awesome, but the entire discography is awesome. Cheers to you, my friends. I'm sure I'll see you both soon in the next. You guys have a Calgary show coming up, or is it Edmonton?
Edmonton.
It's Edmonton. Yes. So maybe I'll be around for that, but we'll have to see. But thank you guys both for coming on. This was really fun.
Awesome. Thanks for having us again.